On the capture, a world torn apart. The story opens in the vast Arizona Territory, 1874. The sun hangs low over endless red mesas, the air trembling with heat and dust. Emily Dawson, a young frontier woman with soft brown hair and eyes like river stones, rides a wagon with her family toward a new homestead. The land promises freedom, but the borderlands are a place where whispers of Apache raids carry like the wind. They are caught by surprise. Riders emerge from the cliffs, painted faces, silent arrows. The scene is chaos, shouts, fire, horses screaming. Emily is pulled from the wreckage, her wrists bound, her heart wild with terror. She doesn't scream. She can barely breathe. Her parents' wagon burns behind her as the Apache disappear into the desert with her among them. Hours later, as dusk falls, they reach a hidden canyon encampment, her world reduced to the crackle of fire and the sound of drums echoing off stone walls. The leader, a tall warrior with dark, unreadable eyes, watches her from across the fire. His name is Taji, meaning hawk that hunts alone. He doesn't speak English, but something in his gaze halts her trembling. Emily believes she will die by dawn. Yet no harm comes to her. Food is placed before her. A blanket is tossed beside her in the dust. The night is filled with strange songs, mournful, deep, beautiful. The world she knew is gone, and the one before her is fierce, alive, and terrifying. The firelight, a whisper of gentleness. Her first night with the Apache begins beneath 1,000 stars. She sits near the fire, hands trembling, knees drawn tight, watching Taji sit apart from his men. He's quiet, his presence commanding without words. She expects cruelty. Instead, there is silence and a strange kind of respect. When she flinches at every sound, he notices. He walks to her slowly, sets down a wooden bowl of water, and gestures for her to drink. His movements are deliberate, calm. The gesture is small, yet it changes something inside her. Later, when the desert cold creeps in, Taji tosses his blanket toward her. Their eyes meet. She whispers, "Thank you," though he cannot understand her words. He nods once, a flicker of recognition that they've crossed a line from fear to fragile humanity. Under that firelight, the world softens for the first time. She sees his hands, scarred but steady. She wonders about his world, his pain, and why he spared her. Between two worlds, the tension of days become weeks. She learns bits of their language slowly, through gestures and glances. The Apache women watch her warily but begin to include her in small chores, fetching water, grinding corn. She learns to braid her hair like them. At first she resists, determined to hold on to her past life. But the harsh desert teaches survival quickly. Taji watches from a distance. His people mistrust her, but he insists she stay under his protection. Rumors spread. The white woman has softened the hawk. At night, the wind sings through the canyon, and she hears his quiet voice speak to the stars, prayers perhaps for the dead. One night, she dares to ask what he says. He doesn't answer, but he looks at her as if weighing her soul. Then gently he says one word, "Peace." It's the first English she hears him speak. That moment, fragile and wordless, binds them. The turning point. Fire and trust one afternoon. Soldiers appear on the ridge. The Apache scatter. Gunfire breaks the silence. Emily, terrified, hides in the canyon crevice. But she sees Taji wounded, trying to protect his people. Without thinking, she runs toward him, dragging him to cover, pressing her hands to his bleeding arm. The soldiers retreat, leaving smoke and dust. The tribe survives. That night, Taji wakes by the fire to find her cleaning his wound, her tears falling silently. He takes her hand and presses it to his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her palm. "No fear," he whispers. The words, simple and broken, pierce her more deeply than any poetry. She realizes that what began as captivity has changed. He could have treated her as a prize. Instead, he treated her as something sacred, a soul to be respected. The journey to love, freedom. Reimagined weeks later, she's given a choice. The soldiers return, this time offering her freedom, a return to white civilization. She stands between two worlds, one of safety and familiarity and one of wild, wordless beauty. Taji says nothing. His pride forbids him to ask her to stay. His eyes alone speak the truth. If she leaves, she takes a part of his spirit with her. As the soldiers wait, She looks back once more at the canyon, the firelight, the faces she's come to know, and the man whose gentleness shattered her fear. She walks toward him. The soldiers shout her name. She doesn't turn. She takes his hand in front of them all, not as a captive, but as his equal. Together they disappear into the canyon's shadow, where the stars burn bright and endless above the desert, and her journey to love truly begins. The Raid. Fear in the Desert. The story opens at dusk, 1876, along the jagged cliffs near the Rio Grande. The frontier has been restless for weeks. Settlers vanish, and the cavalry rides endless patrols under the blood-red sun. Clara Whitmore, a 21-year-old frontier schoolteacher, rides in a wagon guarded by 2 soldiers as she returns from the nearest town. They laugh about how quiet the desert seems, until the silence explodes with the thunder of hooves. Apache riders sweep down like shadows, swift and merciless. The ambush is over in moments. Clara is dragged from the wagon as the others fall. The world becomes dust and fear. Her hands are tied, her bonnet lost to the wind. A warrior on a black horse stops before her, tall, dark-haired, face streaked with war paint. His name is Kaitton, a seasoned Apache leader hardened by war and loss. When Clara looks up expecting death, Kaitton hesitates. There is something in her eyes, not just terror but defiance. He says a quiet word in Apache and she doesn't understand it yet. Toshli, Whitewater, he gives her a flask before, leading her away into the wilderness. That night begins her captivities and the slow unraveling of everything. She thought she knew about savagery and civilization. The first night in a whisper of humanity, the camp is deep in the desert valley, surrounded by stone and starlight. The fire burns low, painting everything in shades of red and gold. Clara is seated apart, trembling, wrapped in a rough blanket. She expects cruelty, yet no one touches her. The women of the tribe glance at her warily but offer no harm. Kaitton sits across the fire, silent, sharpening a blade. When their eyes meet, she turns away, heart pounding. Hours pass. A cold wind creeps over the canyon. Clara shivers, teeth chattering. From the shadows, Kaitton rises, approaches, and drapes a buffalo hide cloak around her shoulders. She stiffens. But when his hand brushes her arm, it's gentle. Unexpectedly gentle. He murmurs a few words in quiet, uncertain English. No hurt, sleep. Something breaks inside her. Tears slip down her cheeks and she hates herself for crying. But for the first time since her capture, she believes she might live through the night. As she lies down near the fire, Kaitton moves to the other side of camp, his back to her. His people watch, whispering, the warrior has broken his own rule. The whisper of gentleness has begun. Days of dust and learning. The wall between them. Morning brings exhaustion and silence. Clara refuses to eat. Kaitton, patient, leaves food by her side. For days she resists, until hunger forces her hand. When she finally eats, the women watch, their faces softening. One, older and kind-eyed, teaches her a few Apache words. Sun, water, thank you. Kaitton watches but doesn't interfere. He learns her name one evening, when she murmurs it under her breath. He repeats it slowly as though tasting the sound. Clara. As the days stretch on, their world becomes smaller, just the fire, the desert wind, and the cautious bridge of understanding forming between them. He teaches her how to ride bareback, how to read the wind, how to listen to the earth. She learns that Kaitton lost his wife and child in a cavalry attack years before. He speaks little, but his silence carries grief too deep for words. Clara realizes something painful. Her own people might have been the cause of his suffering. The barrier between captor and captive begins to blur for the attack. Trust forged in fire weeks later, a rival band attacks Kaitton's camp. Renegade Apaches who see Clara as a threat and a shame upon their leader. Kaitton orders her to hide, but when the chaos breaks out, she runs toward him instead, grabbing a fallen weapon to protect one of the tribe's children. In the aftermath, the camp burns and Kaitton finds her bruised, bleeding, clutching the child in her arms. The sight breaks something in him. He kneels before her, saying in a rough whisper, "You are brave, like Apache woman." It is the highest praise he can give. Later that night, under the shattered sky, he sits beside her. Her hands tremble as she reaches to touch his bandaged shoulder. Their eyes meet, and in that silence, they finally understand one another. What began in fear now holds something sacred, the fragile trust born of shared pain. The journey to love, redemption in the desert seasons change. Clara no longer counts the days. Her dresses are torn, her hair darkened by sun, her heart no longer sure which world she belongs to. The soldiers finally arrive, guided by scouts who followed the smoke. Kaitton is captured, beaten, chained. Clara runs forward, screaming for them to stop. The soldiers ignore her. To them, she's a victim, brainwashed. She fights free and kneels beside him. "He saved me," she cries. "He's not what you think." Her words fall on deaf ears. Kaitton looks up at her, blood on his face, and whispers, "Go, free, but freedom without him feels hollow." That night, she escapes the soldiers' camp and returns to the canyon where he's held. With the help of the Apache women, she frees him under moonlight. As they ride into the mountains, the desert wind howls around them, not as captor and captive, but as two souls bound by something larger than fear or race. They disappear into the wilderness together. Years later, settlers tell of a white woman who rides beside an Apache chieftain, her eyes proud, her spirit unbroken. They say she found something in the firelight that night, not just love, but redemption. On the ambush, Fate in the Dust, the story opens in the high desert of New Mexico, 1872. The air hums with tension. A wagon train crosses through a narrow canyon, its travelers weary, faces drawn. Among them rides Sarah Monroe, a young woman of 20, her spirit dulled by loss. Her husband died of fever months ago, but she continues west with his family, more out of duty than hope. As they stop for water, the world explodes. Gunfire, arrows, and shouting. The Apache descend from the cliffs, moving like shadows. Sarah runs but is caught, pulled down by a strong arm. When she looks up, she sees a warrior's face framed by sunlight, paint streaked in ochre, eyes like polished stone. His name is Nikai, meaning wanderer. He binds her wrists, but when another warrior raises a knife, Nikai shouts something sharp, and the blade lowers. Sarah is shoved onto a horse and taken deep into the canyon as the sun sets blood red behind her. That night, under a canopy of stars, she is left near the fire, trembling. Her first night among them has begun. The whisper, a gentle defiance, Sarah expects death. The men sit around the fire, speaking in a language that flows like wind over stone. Nikai sits apart, sharpening his knife, never looking at her. Yet she feels his awareness of her every movement. When she tries to speak, no one answers. She curls into herself, the fire's warmth doing little to chase away her fear. Hours later, a cold wind sweeps through camp. Her teeth chatter. Nikai rises, walks to her silently, and tosses his blanket over her shoulders. She freezes, unsure if it's a trick. But his eyes are calm, unthreatening. He murmurs one word. Sleep. Something shifts in the air. A strange quietness, as if the desert itself holds its breath. That night, Sarah lies awake, staring at the stars. For the first time, her fear is pierced by confusion. This man, her captor, had no reason to show kindness. And yet he did. It is only a whisper of gentleness, but it plants something fragile in her chest. Doubt. Doubt that all Apaches are monsters. Doubt that her world has told her the truth. The days of silence, two souls, two sorrows, days pass. Sarah refuses to eat at first, determined to resist. But hunger wins. The Apache women, wary but curious, share food and laughter among themselves. A small girl, no older than 10, brings Sarah a piece of bread one morning. The girl's innocence breaks through Sarah's pride, and she takes it. Nikai watches quietly. He is not her jailer in the way she imagined. He gives her space, but his gaze is always near. One day she overhears an elder speaking English. From him, she learns that Nikai once had a white wife, a missionary woman who died of fever years ago. Since then, he has spoken little, wandering like a ghost. Understanding dawns, and his gentleness comes from pain, not pity. He knows what it means to lose someone. That night, as the fire burns low, Sarah gathers the courage to speak. "Why me?" she asks. He looks up slowly, then points to the stars. "Not you. Spirit sent." His words are broken, but his meaning clear. He believes her capture was destiny, not accident. Her heart trembles with fear and something else, a stirring she doesn't yet understand. The storm. When fear turns to trust. Storm rolls in from the mountains, lightning tearing the sky open, rain flooding the canyon. The Apache rush to secure their horses. In the chaos, Sarah slips, falling into the river's edge. The water drags her under. Before darkness takes her, she feels strong arms pull her free. Nikai drags her to shore, coughing, his own chest heaving. He holds her against him, warming her with his body heat, whispering words in Apache she can't understand. When her breathing steadies, she looks up at him, their faces inches apart, rain dripping from his hair. His eyes, fierce yet tender, hold her still. Something in her breaks. The fear that has caged her heart collapses under the weight of his quiet compassion. She whispers his name, Nikai, for the first time. He blinks in surprise, then presses his forehead to hers. No kiss, just closeness, or pure, unspoken connection. That moment in the storm becomes the turning point. She no longer sees a warrior or captor, but a man bound by the same loneliness she carries. The journey to love, beyond the horizon weeks, turn into months. Sarah learns the Apache way of life, gathering roots, weaving, learning to listen to the land. The women begin to smile at her. Children run to greet her. The barrier of fear dissolves. Nikai teaches her words, the Apache names for stars, rivers, and hearts. One night he teaches her the word Ayo Aninishni. It means I love you. She repeats it awkwardly. He smiles, the first real smile she's ever seen from him, but peace is fragile. A group of soldiers appears near the canyon one morning, led by a white trader who claims to rescue captives. When they find her, Sarah steps forward, torn between two worlds. They order her to leave with them. Nikai stands still, his eyes on hers, silent, proud, waiting for her choice. The trader sneers. He's a savage. You don't belong here. Sarah looks back at the Apache camp, the faces of those who took her in, the man who saved her life, the desert that taught her strength. She realizes where she truly belongs. She walks to Nikai's side, taking his hand. The soldiers stare in disbelief. Then you'll die with him, the trader says coldly. But Sarah smiles faintly. No, she replies. I'll live. They disappear into the stormy horizon together. Two souls healed by love, walking toward the silent heart of the canyon where their spirits first met. 1. The War Path. A captive among enemies. The story begins in 1875 along the ragged border of Arizona Territory. War between settlers and Apache has reached its cruelest stage, both sides hardened by years of revenge. The land itself feels wounded. Every canyon hides a story of blood. Evelyn Parker, a young widow, travels east with a wagon train, fleeing memories of a husband lost to fever and a town that never forgave her for surviving. She is practical, composed, but her heart carries quiet ruin. When her wagon train crosses into Apache territory, an ambush explodes at dawn. Bullets, arrows, and dust fill the air. Evelyn is pulled from the wreckage, dragged toward a group of riders. One of them, a tall warrior with braids streaked in gray, watches the chaos with cold restraint. His name is Chaitton, the Falcon. He should have killed her. It was the Apache way for captives of war. But he doesn't. Instead, he lowers his weapon. His men protest, but he silences them with one look. He speaks a single sentence in broken English. Blood ends with me. And so, Evelyn becomes the captive of a man who refuses to kill, a warrior haunted by too many ghosts. The first night. Between fear and honor, that night, the Apache camp glows under the pale moon. Evelyn sits by the fire, her wrists bound but untouched. The air smells of smoke and sage. She stares at the flames, her fear sharp and cold. Across from her, Chaitton sits alone, polishing his rifle. His face is unreadable, strong, scarred, eyes like dark glass. When she tries to speak, he doesn't answer. Hours pass in silence until a cold wind sweeps through the camp. Evelyn shivers then in the soft rustle of movement. Chaitton walks to her, unties her wrists, and sets a buffalo hide around her shoulders. His hand brushes hers only once, a brief, accidental touch, but in that instant something profound passes between them. He says softly, "No harm. You live." Her heart trembles. It's not mercy she hears in his voice, and it's sorrow. That night she dreams of the Falcon, fierce, solitary, wounded. And when she wakes, she finds him already gone, standing at the edge of the canyon, watching the sunrise as if the world's beauty were a punishment. The tension of days. When duty meets compassion, Evelyn's first days in the camp are filled with humiliation and confusion. Some of the younger warriors call her Ghost Woman. The older ones avoid her entirely. Yet every time a man approaches too close, Chaitton appears, silent, immovable, protective. He assigns her tasks among the women, who treat her coldly at first but soften when they see she works hard and does not complain. She learns fragments of their language, enough to understand that Chaitton is no ordinary warrior. He once led raids that made the soldiers tremble, until one night, his own wife and child were killed by a retaliatory cavalry attack. Since then, he has refused to take another life. Evelyn begins to see him differently. His silence is not cruelty. It is grief held too tightly. One evening, as she grinds corn by the fire, she hums a hymn from her childhood. The soft melody drifts through the camp. Chaitton pauses mid-step listening. The song reminds him of something, maybe the sound of his wife singing long ago. He sits beside her without speaking. The firelight flickers across their faces, two broken hearts sitting together in the stillness. The betrayal, blood demands. Blood weeks later, the fragile peace shatters. A scouting party returns, furious. Soldiers have raided a nearby Apache settlement, killing children and elders. The young warriors cry out for vengeance. Chaitton refuses. More blood brings no peace, he says, but his command divides the tribe. Some call him weak, cursed by the white woman's presence. That night, a faction breaks away to hunt the soldiers. When they return, one of them brings a soldier's head and a piece of Evelyn's shawl. Chaitton's eyes darken. He realizes they killed a patrol of settlers and used her clothing to make it appear she was complicit. Now the army will come for them all. That night, Chaitton orders Evelyn to leave. "Go," he says quietly, pressing a canteen into her hands. "They will come. You stay, you die." Tears sting her eyes. "Come with me," she pleads. He shakes his head. "My place is here." Before dawn, soldiers surround the canyon. Gunfire erupts. The camp is chaos, and women and children fleeing, warriors falling. Evelyn runs back into the smoke, searching for him. She finds Chaitton wounded, bleeding near the riverbank. He's trying to save a child trapped beneath a fallen log. Evelyn helps lift it, her hands burning. Together they pull the child free, but the soldiers are closing in. The journey to love. The last promise. Chaitton, bleeding, takes Evelyn's hand and leads her to a hidden trail through the rocks. "You go now," he says. "You live," she refuses. "Not without you." He smiles faintly, the first time she's ever seen him smile. "Then you'll carry me." With the sun rising red over the canyon, they stumble into the desert. The sound of battle fades behind them. By midday, his strength begins to fade. He collapses beneath a mesquite tree, breathing shallowly. Evelyn kneels beside him, pressing her hands to his wound. "Stay with me," she begs. Chaitton looks at her, his eyes soft. "You gave me peace. My spirit rest," she sobs, shaking her head. "Don't say that." He raises a trembling hand to her cheek. "No fear," he whispers, the same words he said on their first night. As the sun sets, he dies in her arms, not as a warrior, but as a man redeemed by love. Evelyn buries him in the canyon overlooking the river. For days she wanders aimlessly before being found by scouts. When they ask what happened, she only says, "He saved me." Years later, settlers tell stories of a woman who lives alone near the old canyon, leaving feathers and wildflowers on a single grave. They call her the Widow of the Falcon. They say she loved an Apache warrior, the one who would not kill, and that her heart never left the desert where he found her. 1. The Desert's Edge. A Fugitive Bride. The story begins in 1877 on the edge of the New Mexico desert. A wagon caravan moves slowly beneath a punishing sun. In one of the wagons sits Lydia Hart, a runaway bride, her wedding dress hidden beneath travel-worn clothes. She fled an arranged marriage to a cruel rancher and has been living in hiding for months, moving from settlement to settlement. When the caravan stops to rest near a narrow river, Lydia walks to the water's edge. She removes her gloves and lets the cool current wash over her hands. The first peace she's felt in years. Then the gunshots come. Apache riders descend from the cliffs, swift and silent. Panic erupts. Lydia freezes as the travelers scatter. Through the chaos, she sees him. A warrior astride a chestnut horse, tall and broad-shouldered, his face painted in ochre and ash. His name is Talon, son of a chief, a man burdened by the deaths of his people at the hands of settlers. He moves with purpose, not rage. When he reaches her, she raises her hands in surrender. Instead of striking her, he looks at her torn dress and bloodied shoes, and something in his eyes softens. He lifts her onto his horse and rides away into the desert, away from the gunfire, away from everything she thought she knew. The first night, a quiet between two worlds. They stop by the river at dusk. The desert glows in shades of gold and violet. Lydia's wrists are bound, her heart racing, but Talon keeps his distance. He makes a fire, his movements calm, deliberate. The smell of smoke and cedar fills the air. She sits apart, her fear tightening like a fist. Hours pass in silence. When night deepens, the desert cold creeps in. Lydia begins to shiver. Talon stands, removes his cloak, and drapes it over her shoulders. She flinches, startled by his closeness. He says only 2 words in rough English. No harm. That night she cannot sleep. The fire crackles softly. Every time she glances up, she sees him sitting nearby, eyes fixed on the horizon. His presence, steady, silent, protective, frightens her less than the emptiness of the night. It is their first fragile bridge, born not of trust, but of shared stillness. The awakening, learning each other's shadows over the days that follow, Lydia learns that Talon's tribe lives deep within the desert canyon, hidden from the world. The people there regard her with suspicion, but no one touches her. The chief, Talon's father, allows her to live only because his son swore she was under his spirit's protection. Lydia helps the women gather herbs and water. Slowly she learns their rhythm, the hum of daily survival, the laughter of children, the sacred songs at dusk. Talon watches her from afar. He is a man of few words but unspoken depth. One day he shows her how to braid reeds to make rope, their hands brushing. She pulls away at first, but when their eyes meet, something wordless passes between them. That night she thanks him in broken Apache. He laughs softly for the first time, correcting her pronunciation. From then on, she begins to dream of him, not as her captor, but as her protector. The fire and the river, the trial of love. The fragile peace is shattered when a group of outlaws, neither Apache nor settlers, but mercenaries, raid the camp, stealing horses and taking a child hostage. Talon rides out in pursuit, leaving Lydia behind with the tribe. When the outlaws return, wounded and desperate, they threaten the village. Lydia, terrified, grabs a rifle and fires a warning shot. The same sound that once marked her fear now becomes her courage. Talon returns to find the camp saved and Lydia protecting the children. The chief, seeing her bravery, declares that her spirit has joined with the people. That night, Talon approaches her by the river. The moonlight glints on the water, turning it silver. He places his hand on his heart and says softly, 2 rivers, yours, mine. She steps closer. And where they meet? He smiles faintly. 1 heart. The words hang between them like a prayer. She reaches out and touches his chest, the first time she's allowed herself to feel without fear. The journey to love. Redemption under the stars weeks later. Soldiers arrive, drawn by rumors of a white woman living among the Apache. They demand her return, threatening violence. Lydia stands before them, trembling but firm. I am not your prisoner, she says. I am his, the commander sneers. He's a savage. But when the soldiers raise their rifles, Talon steps forward, unarmed. Take me, he says, but leave my people. Lydia cries out, but the tribe restrains her. The soldiers seize Talon and drag him away. For days, Lydia prays to every god she's ever known. Then, in the quiet dawn, she rides alone into the desert, to the outpost where he's held. Under cover of darkness, she sneaks inside and frees him. They flee on horseback, chased by gunfire and dust until the desert swallows the noise. At dawn, they reach the river, the same river where they first met. Exhausted, they collapse by the water's edge. Talon, bleeding, whispers, you should have gone. Lydia shakes her head. Not from you. He smiles weakly, touching her cheek. You are my river. You bring life back. She presses her lips to his, the desert wind carrying their breath into eternity. When the sun rises, they are gone, vanished into legend. Some say they crossed into the mountains and lived among both tribes and settlers, teaching peace. Others say the river carried their spirits away. But every spring, when the desert blooms, travelers find woven reeds tied along the riverbank, two strands bound together like two hearts that once beat as one.